Hello, everyone. Today we're interviewing Evan Schwerbrock, who is the founder of Cain and Abel, Cain and Abel Fitness. Now, this is a dedicated fitness business, which is dedicated to help blind and visually impaired people access fitness more easily. Now, Evan does bring a uniquely qualified skill set. Not only as a highly credited professional in fitness. Now, he became legally blind when he was about 20. I believe that's right, Evan?
Yeah, I think it was 22. I always lose track.
Yeah. He's also adapted his own training, own coaching, strength and conditioning, and kind of just developed your own platform for building up this kind of work. So in this conversation, we'd like to find out a bit more about Evan and how his journey started and how everything happened. So yeah, let's go forward. And Evan, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Happy we're able to talk.
So for you, where would you say this story began? Where did it start?
It probably started when I was just a tiny little nerdy kid trying to overcompensate for being so small. Got really into the weightlifting and then was able to keep pursuing that passion for a while I still had correctable vision all the way until I was 22.
And so you weren't born with any sight issues.
No, I had astigmatism. I had to wear glasses since like first or second grade. Um, but then when I was 22, all of a sudden, I just finished my bachelor's in health science and was working a few jobs in the fitness industry. And all of a sudden, in November of 2014, my eyes took a turn.
Did you know this condition was like gonna happen, or was there any kind of like warning, or did it just like one day change?
So we had an uncle and like a second cousin once removed or something who had a disease. And we were kind of told as kids, like, if you don't drink or do hardcore drugs, then you'll be fine. You won't live hard enough of a lifestyle to wind up with this disease. And then there was me who was, super healthy and shredded and, working out all the time and all that stuff and eating pretty healthy. And all of a sudden my eyes started to go. And I noticed it and I thought maybe I just need a new contacts prescription. I don't know. And then a couple I had a death ride in my truck where I barely made it home and all this stuff. I wound up getting it checked out and kind of brought up to the eye doctor because he couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And he took a picture of my optic nerve and very quickly we had it figured out what was so messed up with me.
And what's your eye condition, if you don't mind?
It's Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, or LHON for short.
LHON. Okay, so what is that?
It's basically a mitochondrial disease. So my mitochondria suck, is the way that I put it at our Leber's conferences. And while that can affect a lot of things when it comes to exercise, it kind of picks on the optic nerve and doesn't allow it to have enough energy. So it dies off to one extent or another. So it can kind of vary how much sight you lose,
Yeah.
but it's very quick progressing. So within about 2 weeks, most of my symptoms had arisen back in 2014.
Wow. So quite a huge change from driving, like traveling, navigating, doing things on your own to that change.
Yeah. My truck had its own name. Everybody knew what, like referred to it like it was its own person and everything. And all of a sudden it's get home from an eye appointment, put the keys away, never drive again.
Wow. But I mean, that's quite pretty big for you to start now, have developed this business. So, can you tell me, how did Cain and Abel take shape?
Yeah, I was the next year after my disease kicked in, I was off to grad school in Chicago to get my master's in kinesiology. And, I had to get into the gym and I had to figure it out. Wound up meeting a good buddy who, we're great friends to this day. And we became training partners and all this stuff. So, I'm deadlifting 500 pounds or like 225 kilos and, doing fun, heavy lifts like that and having a good time. And then I still had a guy walk up to me and go, hey, it's really you're really inspiring to a lot of us here. Like it's great that you're here. And it was like a congratulations for being in this building that has weights in it kind of thing. And I was like, man, if I'm being treated like this and I just did what I did over there, like lifting heavy junk, then how bad is it for everybody else? How much are they being doubted, or it's just magical that they can be in the premises of a gym? I was like, man, if I'm being treated this weirdly, like it's got to be so discouraging for other people who don't have the background that I have. So after I finished grad school and then COVID hit, I had the time to be able to write a ton of articles and really get things rolling and start up K Enable Fitness to try to really bridge that gap.
And how did you come up with the name?
So I'm a Christian, so I wanted my faith played in there somehow.
Yeah.
And while Cain and Abel, that story isn't exactly the greatest metaphor for the work that we're trying to
Yeah.
do, the wordplay of spelling it Cane and Able, I thought was worth it because once I had my white cane and I was rolling around with that, all of a sudden
Yeah.
people judged me very differently and thought I was very incapable, even though me and my family knew differently. So the fact that I have a cane doesn't mean that I'm incapable. So we made it Cain and Abel.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, so you mentioned before that you had quite a relationship with fitness before you went blind. How was your exercising before? Was it different or is it about the same?
It definitely involved more running and stuff, or being able to just do stuff like that when I wanted. I was very into CrossFit. I thought I was going to be Rich Froning until I realized with my extreme scoliosis and my lever arms and my lack of athleticism, I probably wasn't going to be that good. So I started switching to a little bit heavier stuff, messing with powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, things like that. And it wasn't until I became blind that I even switched to strongman. So it was a lot more circuits and running around beforehand.
That's great. And when you first started, because you said it changed from running to more powerlifting, when your sight started changing, do you feel like it would be taken away from you or something that you could overcome?
No, I can still pursue running and like get to a track and stuff like that and be able to be okay with the textures and everything. It just kind of veered where my focus was. I realized there's a lot of complications with trying to do all the different things that I wanted to program when it came to like CrossFit and stuff like that. And I wanted to compete. I knew that wasn't going to be my avenue to do that. So I was a couple years into grad school, actually, just doing all these weird, odd lifts because I just kept pursuing what felt fun to me.
Yeah.
And then one of my buddies, again, the same guy, Jared, he said, all this weird stuff you do, all these odd lifts, you should try strongman. And it just like clicked with me. And I knew, oh, that's what I've been wanting to do. So that's when I started competing after like 3 years of being blind.
Okay, that's great. And when you were first diagnosed, sorry, I'm just going back a bit, did you, um, when you think back to that period, what stands out most to you?
Um, just how my family, like my mom and my siblings didn't doubt that I was capable. It was just we got to figure it out kind of thing. Um, and also just I've had some very good examples, again, mostly from my mom, of being very tough through hard circumstances, and powering through different medical things and everything. So I knew that I had to kind of take on that attitude in order to overcome things. And then it was still obviously very tough and everything, but I had to figure out systems to keep me just consistently making steps forward every day. And it was just those little wins and the therapy of the gym that really added up to still being able to graduate and move on to other things.
Yeah. So did you start at any point think that trying to build truly inc- trying to build something truly inclusive was more demanding or challenging than you originally thought?
Um, that's a great question. I I kind of went in just wanting to help in a way that I felt qualified to. And so my brother helped build the website and put up blog posts and everything for a good year. And to me, it was just like, we're just going to plug away at this and see what happens. It was all just organically about helping. I had other jobs and everything at the time. And after that, even switched jobs. And this was just a side hobby, but I would still be working on it for hours and hours and hours every week. So it's always just been a labor of love.
Great. And did you have a client in mind who you had originally adapted your programs for, or and who kind of uses them now?
Yeah, so my programs and my training services, I've mostly worked with sighted people until about 2019. Um, and that's because of the different jobs that I had and everything. So I was, once we switched to really doing remote coaching with K Enable and doing seminars, whether virtual or in person, and things like that, that's when it really ramped up for really stressing the adaptability. Yeah, so it's been a very big mix.
Do you have any like, so because you mentioned adaptive fitness, and when you do adaptive fitness, do have people have their preconceptions or pre-notions in their head, and when they come to you and you're like, oh, it's adaptive fitness, well, how is it different?
Yeah, well, it's usually like a big relief from people. Like, I didn't know anything like this was out here. I've had people just like I found you because I was Googling fitness for the blind, or like blind fitness, and you popped up. And thank goodness, I didn't think anything like this would exist. I was just hoping maybe there was some article or something, and this whole resource and a coach that can help, and all these different things. So yeah, again, it's usually just like people very happy that something is inclusive, and then they're excited to explore that world from there.
And it is such a way of exploration, like it's completely different the way we do things. So
Yeah, but for the side community, I think it's going to be some wild thing that's like really weird, but it's a lot of subtle tweaks. When you're like getting into a squat rack or lining up yourself against a bar. I mean, I had some different posts like kind of go minorly viral after the championships this year, and a lot of people were calling me out for being fake blind and all this stuff in the comments because they didn't realize like all the five little things I did lining up to a deadlift bar, and all these like adaptations you have to do in order to be efficient, especially for a competition, and move really well. But I'm like, man, I had this checklist in my head. I've been practicing and ingraining these things for a decade. Like, there's a lot of little things that then you make very normal, and then it's just second nature to you. So it's really cool. Once you start adapting things, then it becomes very automatic.
yeah. So would you say when you've lost your sight has truly changed the way you adapt your form or your movements, and just generally the way you approach activities and exercise?
Yeah, I was never much a one to be in the mirror in the first place.
Yeah, okay.
I was just wanting to get after it with my friends. Um, but now it's like you can't rely on visual cues at all. You can't necessarily like watch instructional YouTube videos or anything like that. We in the blind population, we have to figure out how to do things tactily. And then when I'm coaching people, I have a system for turning things from an extrinsic tactile to an intrinsic tactile to an audible cue. So we just use more accessible cueing strategies, and I'll do the same thing for myself. And that is how then we're able to really succeed. We just get to learn in a different way.
That's great. So when you're coaching someone who's blind or visually impaired, what tends to matter more than apps or programming?
Um, just like building their confidence. A lot of people have been told they can't do anything for a really long time. So having that first big breakthrough of like, nope, things can go positively here. I actually posted a story the other day. I was doing a seminar series in Columbia, the country. I live in Columbia, South Carolina right now. But at the end of this certain seminar teaching different physiotherapists and physiotherapist students. And then they had a few blind people at this disability center. Got to sit down with each of the blind people and go over anything that they needed to work on. And within 2 minutes, we were able to get this wonderful old grandma able to do a squat in and out of a chair without hurting her knees. And that just blew her away. And she was just so excited about exercise after that because she found a way when she thought getting in and out of a chair was just going to be this annoying, very painful thing that stressed her out every day, however many times. So other exercise seemed incredibly inaccessible. But when we were able to solve that so quickly and she was able to catch on using more accessible cues, then it was just like she was so excited to be able to do other things as well.
That's great when you in such a feeling when someone is like just so grateful when they're like, oh, you've changed something small. What we think small is really big for them.
Exactly. Those breakthroughs are really fun.
Yeah. Um. So, are there common assumptions about blindness that you find challenging through your work?
Yeah, and I would love your take on this as well. A lot of people think when in my case that I can't see anything, or that then because I fake eye contact because that was a survival mechanism for me to like maintain jobs and stuff,
Yeah.
and be able to build trust. And I try to be polite socially in that way.
Yeah.
Then they're like, well, he can make eye contact. So I'm like, I don't see what your face looks like. I don't care how hot you are. Like, I'm just trying to be polite.
Yeah.
But they make a big deal out of things like that, and then start questioning everything. And it's like, let's rely more on my knowledge base here.
Yeah.
Or people would think, why does he use a cane outside? Because he was even like walking to work, and then be like, he doesn't use a cane in here, and not comprehend like I've been working here for 4 years, and maybe I have things memorized enough by
Yeah.
now. So there's just a lot of ignorance, and not in a way full of malice or anything.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of these misconceptions about blindness that we have to keep encountering. So, but what about you? What's been your take in that as well?
Um, I agree. As from my expertise doing physiotherapy, I've come across people when they find out that I'm blind, it's that same kind of thing. It's like, oh, you're blind and you can do physiotherapy. It's a shock to them. But it's something that once they realize, oh, actually, I can do the same thing. I'm just a bit more hands-on, more tactile. I get permission before I put my hands on you. I say I'm going to move your shoulder. It's just I use more verbal cues and more tactile positioning when I'm doing certain movements, and it's more of an open discussion, which some people prefer because then I explain everything that's going on and what's happening and what's moving. Whereas other more sighted people just naturally do things and view things without really discussing it. So it has both those things. But yes, people are surprised when I do work or when I do movements or when I do certain things. They're like, oh, but how do you do that? You can't see. And it's just like, yes, but we adapt. We naturally adapt and just change the way we do things.
Absolutely. I don't know if you ever get this comment. I'm sure you do. But when someone learns about you losing your sight, or they learn about how you still do things with poor sight or no sight, and they're like, "Oh, I could never do that." You're like,
Yeah.
A, that's weird that you put that upon yourself and your lack of confidence. But B, you should be more confident than
Yeah.
that. And I think a lot of that doubt, or just because somebody hasn't had to adapt to something they think they can't, is a terrible attitude, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, putting that upon the person who actually has the disability seems almost cruel. You're like, don't I got other junk going on. I don't have to deal with you not thinking you can deal with the thing you don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that comment always gets me.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get what they're saying. They think that it's something to overcome, but when you have to, everyone has their own challenges, and it's when we overcome them is when we find out what we can really do. We like to not hold ourselves back by limits. You've done amazing things. You've got your business. You've got your training. You've done your post grad, your first degree. So we don't see them as limitations. We just see them as things that we want to do. So we go and do them.
Absolutely. And you were telling me your story before we started recording,
Yeah.
and it's like you just kept living and you refused to put life on pause
Yeah.
and just kept rolling. And people think that's some sort of miracle.
And that's what we like. Um, what? So what kind of? um, changes do clients describe after working with you? Like physically, emotionally, do they say, anything in particular?
Yeah, I try not to catalog the compliments too much. That's not how my brain works. But yeah, I have people when if we're talking specifically visually impaired clients where they very much value that I'm visually impaired. I can understand where they're coming from, and then I'm able to teach them faster instead of a lot of blind people are like, yeah, I had a personal trainer, but like it was my parents paying for it, and we only have so many sessions, and it's like most of the sessions was just the sighted person who a lot of personal trainers aren't actually that qualified. They're pretty and they like working out, and got a $200 certification or something. But even if they're more qualified, they probably, again, because of all the misconceptions or lack of awareness about blindness, most of the personal training sessions are spent trying to figure out that person.
Yeah,
When right from the get go, I'm able to ask a couple of different questions that I have down at this point and really figure out where that person's coming from, and then just get to problem solving
yeah,
instead of, oh well, what, like trying to figure out what blindness is and how to maybe try and train a blind person and come up with ideas, and I got to do a lot of googling first. It's just we get off to the races, and I think a lot of people really appreciate that.
yeah. And through your online presence and speaking, what are you hoping that people um, feel when they come across Cane Enable Fitness?
um that there's good options out there for people with any disability, really. I participate in adaptive strongman. That's my competitive realm right now, and there's a lot of people with a lot of different disabilities, all showing what is actually possible, because they just shut up and get after it. So again, I'm not the most emotional guy necessarily, and a lot of my therapy can come from the gym, and I feel like then at least something went good in my day. So what I hope for people to have is at least some sort of workout where they feel like they got better, because when you have those really bad days, but you still have the win of a workout within a day, I really feel that makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you do enter quite a lot of competitions. You're recognized as the world's strongest blind man. What does that title mean to you?
It just means that I'm trying to lead by example best I can. So if you're able to earn a title like that, which was by winning the Adaptive Strength World Championships this last year, so I'm even world's strongest disabled man in my category. Um, that's very important because then you had enough clout to go to a school for the blind and roll a frying pan in your hands and talk about, hey, if I can do this kind of stuff, you guys can too. Whatever you want to do, just do it. Then it has a little bit more oomph behind it instead of, I like lifting weights and you should do stuff too.
Yeah. And so, how has competing at that high level um, changed your understanding between from strength
Um, Another good
beyond the
question.
physical sense? Like, does it mean more to you?
Yeah, it started to change. So I grew up tiny little nerdy kid. I was the exact last person in my grade who you would have thought would have been lifting weights, let alone succeeding at it whatsoever. And it really just has told me consistency enough over time can create some really really big results, which is really cool. I never thought I would be a world champion at anything, and it was just kind of like over the years you kind of start to dare to dream some different things, and so it's kind of metaphorically opened my eyes to what's possible for a lot of other people as well, because I'm not wildly genetically blessed or anything. So the amount of things you can overcome just by sticking with it is really cool. So I'm just more excited to set that example for others, and then be able to witness what other people with different disabilities are able to do because they had the wherewithal to just keep after it.
Yeah, that's great. So then, do you feel tension between being an elite athlete and making fitness accessible?
No, I think they're one and the same. I think it's just on a continuum. So I push myself hard to just be at the tip of the spear, and show how far things can get pushed. But I am still, again, not that wildly physically blessed or anything. It's just been putting in the work for a while. So I know that anybody can start wherever they need to. My very first time in a gym, I always like telling this story. I was being trained up by some of the different football coaches. They took some of us kids in there, and we're doing a little circuit trying to teach us the movement so we wouldn't be completely in the way when they started having lifting sessions. And I wasn't allowed to play football because I was so small, American football. And there was one lift where I remember exactly which teacher it was. He told me to pull the bar up to my shoulders and then use my legs and shove it overhead. And I tried, and I wound up hovering the bar just above my head. I hit myself in the head, hit myself in the shoulders, and dropped the bar, and was like almost passing out. And he said, "Just get out of here." And so
Oh,
like I know how bad your first time in the gym could be, or how weak you can start out and
yeah.
everything. And so I fully understand where anybody is starting from, and we just take it from wherever they're at.
And then keep going. And that's what you have to do. You just take it from where you are at this time in your life, and you just keep going.
Exactly.
Uh, so, from your perspective, what does true accessibility in fitness look like?
Just acceptance, I think. Um, I mean, if there's a gym where just people are willing to chip in, help out. Hey, that's what this dumbbell weighs. Just that lack of complete selfishness, and a little bit more community. That really does go a long way. I'm very lucky. I'm going to be partnering with a incredibly accessible gym here that's actually outfitted for people of all disabilities. It's the most compliant gym in the state of South Carolina. We're holding a fitness seminar for the blind and visually impaired in March. So I think that gym will be a shining example of just how accepting an environment can be in order to then let people loose to make themselves better.
And that seminar, is it going to be like recorded? Can people like have access to it? Is it online or is it just in person?
That one's just going to be in person. It's going to be like this whole 4 hour, accessible talks about all kinds of different topics regarding health, and hands-on work, like actually doing exercise and all this fun stuff. Yeah, we're kind of trialing this style to then be able to maybe do different, more interactive seminars around the country.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I hope we get to have a chat after that. We can catch up to see how that whole seminar went.
Yeah,
Because it'd be
absolutely. I
interesting to
love that.
follow up with that.
Oh yeah, we'll talk.
Great. Um, so what do you wish more trainers or organizations understood when it came to working with visually impaired or blind people?
That blindness is a continuum, but also each person's symptoms can kind of change depending on stress, sleep, lighting, nerves, all this, even like nutrition, all this different kind of stuff. So just keeping a pulse on how that person's symptoms manifest, but also how they are outside of the eyes. A lot of people focus on just, oh, their eyes are bad, look out. But there's a lot more to the person to be able to address as well. And I think making things accessible and starting with those big wins, like I talked about earlier. Another big one is just like there's the knurling on a barbell, and that is there's those little rings, there's the smooth parts, there's the rough knurling, all these things, mostly because of powerlifting and people being able to line up properly and be within the rules of powerlifting federations. But I've taken little kids and brought them into the gym at different blind sports camps and stuff and been like, you feel this thing? And they're like, yeah, why is it textured? And you're like, do you think it's for you? And they're like, no, because sadly they've learned. And you're like, yeah, it's not. But this, you can line up your hands and make sure you're symmetrical all the time while you're doing squats, you're doing bench presses, whatever. And this is a great in for you to understand how different things can sneakily be accessible for you at the gym. So I think if trainers start with that, of not like, hey, this is all going to be daunting, but with those little wins and really build that confidence and consistency, and people feel more comfortable to really just push themselves at the gym, that's a great start.
That's yeah. And we all need those little wins because they make such big changes.
Yeah, momentum is everything.
Um, so looking back across your journey, from vision loss to competitions to coaching, what something has changed for you?
Oh man. I don't know, like what?
Um, how do you see yourself? So what has changed in all this experience on how you view your own self?
Um, well, what comes to mind is my second orientation mobility specialist, the one that I did the most work with in Peoria, Illinois. Her name is Molly Pasley. She's actually a doctor now, Dr. Molly Pasley, teaching US of teaching people who are going to be practitioners for the blind. And we're great friends to this day. But she kind of started forcing me to go to different galas and dinners in the dark and fundraisers for the Center for the Blind in the area that we were in. I said, I don't want to be a mascot or an advocate or whatever. And she's like, you need to be an advocate. There, like, and there was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Um, and I was just like, I'm just a dude. I don't care. Like I don't need to like be like, look at me or anything like that. But ever since then, and her forcing me to these things, which I did make sure she gave me double dinners at these events. That's how they coaxed me in because they know me well. Um, Now I do embrace that a lot more. And it's just to again be an example and one person trying to push things forward. And again, it's not necessarily about me, but it's about the holistic community getting just raised up and hoping to be a small part of that. So embracing advocating for myself and therefore breaking down different stereotypes and issues, but also helping others be able to advocate for themselves as well.
That's amazing. Evan, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience and getting to talk to you today. Like, it's been great getting to learn about your experience, your skills, your knowledge, and how things are developing for you. So I thank you for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy there's somebody else across the pond over there doing the same.
Yeah, we're gonna keep this dialogue open. We're gonna try and see what else we can do going forward. We're gonna find out about this talk that's happening after you've done the seminar. So yeah, thanks for that.